It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is a classic from Alice Cooper, who's currently on tour opening up for Motley Crue, and that is $1 Billion Babies, Chris. And I wish I had $1 billion, don't you?
More than a baby.
Nice. Well, anyway, Alice Cooper is out there, like I said, opening up for what supposedly is Motley Crue's final tour. And, I've seen Alice many times, and he has probably got one of the tightest bands. It doesn't matter who's in the band. Right. It's like he's like a ringmaster, whenever he moves his cane one way or stomps his foot one way or another, his musicians in his band know to react and do a certain thing. And, he puts on a show,
Sure.
And I had the fortune of meeting Alice Cooper when he had that restaurant in Cleveland called Cooperstown.
Right, sure.
And Teddy Andreas, is that how you say his name, Chris?
Teddy Zigzag.
Teddy Zigzag was playing with him at the time, as well as Eric Singer. And I got to meet them as well. But a guy who knows probably more about Alice Cooper than both of us put together and probably all of our fans combined.
All right.
Is a guy that we had on the show a few weeks ago. He has a new book out. It's just called We Are the Road Crew. I want to welcome back to the Classic Metal Show for his second time and more to come. Believe me, I like having this guy on the show. Ken Barr. Welcome back, Ken.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but no problem, man. I'll tell you what, you've had the experiences that most people don't get. Chris and I have had our share of hanging out and meeting people and even becoming friends in the music business. But you're a guy who's, been up close, personal with a lot of stars, be it hard rock or soft rock or pop or metal or whatever it is. And we like having you on the show. And, of course, you chronicle some of that in your book called We Are the Road Crew.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing I can do is tell you guys, I'll tell anybody that will listen to the story. I'll tell them to strangers if they'll sit still long enough.
Sure.
Because I absolutely love my time on the road. I miss it. And you can't, if there's people that are interested, oh Lord, sit down for a half hour, let's go. And what you guys were just saying about the band being intuitive to what and Alice being the ringleader. That just, I hadn't even thought of this as my first, thing to talk about, but what a lot of people don't realize is all that other action going on up there is the crew. If there's a character, if there's a monster, if there's a clown, if there's anything, that comes first. When you're a tech, that if there's a part that needs to be filled, it's not a, hey, can we get a volunteer? It's, okay, you're going to be the clown, you're going to be, and that, I'll give you guys an example. They used to do Gutter Cats versus the Jets, and there would be a gang fight, and it was like West Side Story, and the band would fight the crew, so we'd go out there in gang colors, and there was a whole choreographed thing, and Reb Beach and Reb kind of started getting into it, and he would push his guitar behind him, and we'd hit chest to chest pretty hard, and I'm about twice the size of Reb, so it just was like a rubber band on McGill Gorilla, but. But there's one particular day, he whipped his guitar behind him, and the strap broke loose, and the guitar went flying. And his guitar tech was the other gang guy. We just stood there and laughed. The rep had to go chase his little guitar himself, go get another one that wasn't broken, and come back out. Because the show comes first, So when you're playing a part, that's what you're doing. And like I said, there's a prop guy named Pat out there that's been with the group forever, and he was. The big main monster at the beginning of the Brutal Planet tour, and he's played so many parts, and that's the crew job. Besides what you normally do, it's a very unique experience. It really is.
Well, Ken, speaking of Alice Cooper and the fact that that I mentioned that Alice's shows are very precise. I guess that would be a good term. Who choreographs everything and decides this guy moves here and this guy moves when I point my cane or when I stomp my foot or if I point in a certain direction. Who choreographs that all out, and how long does it take for the band to work those individual parts out?
You know, a lot of that is worked out between Alice and the band themselves, because Alice is so intuitive. He knows visually what it's going to look like before he even does it. And, you know, as you guys were saying earlier, you know, his band are just, they're all great. And you know, Tommy Henriksen, who's been in the band the past few years, is a guy I grew up with and worked the bars with years ago, and he was always a real talent. And it just surprises me how intuitive everyone is. And the other thing to keep in mind, too, is Alice's wife, Cheryl, is a dancer and a choreographer, and she's always got a hand in that as well. She's played parts since the Welcome to My Nightmare tour in 75 or 76. So she's got input as well. So they're a very artistic family outside of rock and roll. You know, Cheryl teaches and is very involved in dance and choreography. So, you know, everybody's just got a real alertness to that and I think an intuitiveness. And, you know, rehearsals, maybe a day or two, they may, you know, we'll run the show a couple times and everybody's got their stuff down. It's really, really impressive. And, you know, the thing with Alice, too, is his hand-eye coordination is amazing. His stuff will come up over the stage, somebody will lob something, and he'll just grab it and toss it, and you barely even saw it. It's, you know, when he's got the sword out there, he knows exactly where he's putting it. The same with anything. It's a real talent. It truly is.
Sure. Well, Ken, let me ask, I'll tell you a quick story that we have about Alice, and it'll lead to something that you may or may not have a story about or knowledge of, but we were doing, man, this had to be 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago now. We were doing an interview with Vinny Appice, the drummer for Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath, blah, blah, blah. And I think Heaven and Hell and Alice were touring together. And when we called...
Yeah, I saw that tour. They were great. Everybody was great.
Yeah, it was Queensryche, Alice Cooper, and Heaven and Hell.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, yeah. What ended up happening was Vinny forgot that we had the interview to do. And we've been friends with Vinny forever. And so we called him on his cell phone and say, hey, where are you at? And he was out at the movies with Alice. You know, they were just out, you know, being regular people for a minute. And I guess what my question is for guys like Alice Cooper, especially Alice or Gene Simmons or, you know, Paul Stanley or whatever, guys that are so recognizable on a national spotlight, do these guys get to do that stuff often? And when they do they bring like some of their crew with them to keep people away from them so that they can have a good time? Or how does that whole dynamic work?
I think that nobody really goes out alone. I think Alice and Gene and those guys, they've made themselves so approachable that it's not really an issue. On the Kiss tours I did, Andre, the security guy, some things he might have gone with them, you know, if they wanted to go to a club or something or catch a movie. Sometimes they would just go by themselves, you know. But they would travel. They'd be a group of 4 or 5 people. And, you know, Alice the same. You know, whoever wants to go. I mean, it was always, that was another one of the cool family type things was, you know, if we happened to be in the same hotel, it would just be, hey, you know, we're all going to the movies at 8 o'clock if anybody wants to go. So it wasn't intentional. It wasn't I don't even think Alice for a lot of the tours had, you know, security people with him. It was just, you know, the family. And when you got a road crew with you, you really don't need to worry. But nothing was really intentional. You know, I know the Kiss guys like to bowl a lot, and they'll, you know, go out, just a bunch of them, and just go, you know, with or without security. So I think it's just, I think when you seclude yourself like a Michael Jackson and you make yourself this mysterious entity, people, you know, are going to clamor for you. But, you know, if you're a regular guy going to say, hey, how are you, blah, 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 I think more approachable, you're not going to get mobbed, you're not going to have a hard time. I think that's why that does that.
Sure. Did you ever see them actually have problems, though, where somebody's like, Kiss fucking sucks, or, you know, or your album blows, or whatever, you know, starting trouble with people?
You know, you're always going to get the asshole that's got a mouth on him, and he's going to see what he can do. And those guys are pros, you know. They you watch them do interviews. They can take any question and put a positive spin on it and make it sound exactly the way they want it to. And they'll do it, if somebody's being an asshole, they'll be like, well, that's really too bad you don't get it, but, that's your loss. And it's a matter of handling yourself. And those guys they've done it so long, you have to learn how to, or you're not going to survive. It's part of having that thick skin you need. You're going to get bad reviews. You're going to get, assholes that just, hey, I insulted Gene Simmons to his face. People take pride in that kind of shit, Mm-hmm. They think that it elevates them. I was better than Gene Simmons because I insulted him. It's like, really? No, you're just a fucking asshole that, if that's all you have to give to the world is, a couple of comments. Well, you haven't really contributed, But it's like the bully in the bar, he puffs himself up, he beats up somebody small, and, he thinks he's a big man, but he's not. And it comes down to that.
Sure. Well, Ken, you've worked with a lot of different people, and, we started things off here with Alice Cooper, and last time we had you on the show, we spoke about, your times with Kiss. What do you think meeting one of these rock icons, as it were, for the first time and working with them through a tour, what endears certain tech guys, road guys, to those musicians to where they kind of make you a buddy?
As far as the icons, I don't know. I mean, with Alice, you become part of the family,
Well, how does that happen? I mean, how do you become part of the family? What endears you to where Alice will come up to you and say, hey, Ken, how's it going today? Or, hey, you want to join us at the movie tonight? Or,
Well, it definitely takes time. You can't just instantly be somebody's buddy.
Sure.
But I think a commitment to the job is pretty obvious, If you're not Joe Party guy or Joe, getting a blowjob instead of doing the job, I think if you show a genuine appreciation for what you're doing and work hard, obviously, and give a shit, you have to want to be there, and you have to want to be, and you have to be genuine. People are gonna, you see so many posers and fakes and bullshitters that you can weed those out. If you've got someone who genuinely likes what they're doing and wants to be a part of it, they're going to eventually become part of the family. When I got hired, I was Al Petrelli's guitar tech, and I had to run his pedal board off stage for him. Well, I missed the first leg of the Alice Cooper tour because I was in Australia with Debbie Gibson, and I had to come in with no rehearsals. Well, I could do that because A, I knew Al Petrelli for years, and B, I knew all the songs because I was an Alice Cooper fan. So I came in cold, loaded into an arena, ran a guitar pedal, did all the stuff, knew all the cues, and genuinely loved where I was. I was where I wanted to be. On the road.
Hold on one second, Ken. Before you continue that, I just want to ask a question about that part right there that you just said. Just because I'm not a musician, and I'll be the first one to admit it. That stuns me. Does that mean that literally you have to watch the show, not just watch the show, but watch it to the level of watching where Al's doing and what's being played and whatnot to work the pedal board, 4 or 5 times during a song? Every song?
You don't really have to watch. You need to be able to hear it. And, Al had his guitar cabinets stage left blowing across the stage, so they were literally right next to me. And the monitors are everywhere. And as long as you can hear it, with Alice, you kind of have to keep an eye because of the theatrical elements going on as well. But yeah, you've got to be, in tune. But just like a musician, like a real guitar player, it becomes secondary after a while. And like I said, because I knew the songs, I knew when the chorus is coming in. I know when the lead's coming in. I know when the solo's here. Okay, boom. You fuck up a little bit here and there, but very, very little. And, before you know it, you're tuning a guitar, you're running a pedal board, you're doing 3 things at once, and it's like you're a member of Prince's band where you're doing 6 dance steps, playing your parts and singing backup. You learn to do it, and you do it.
Right. Well,
like I said, having a genuine love of the music, I think really, because so many guys out there get jaded. They don't want to be out there anymore. They're tired, but they can't really find something off the road, and they don't belong out there. Once you've hit that point where you're bitching every day, it's time to go home.
Sure.
And there's a lot of those out there. Those guys are never going to be part of the family. It's, like I said, you have to want to be there. You have to want to be a part of it. And you have to be proud of it, which, the shows we talk about the artists that I worked with before. And the thing is, my physical, technical abilities were there, but, I was lucky to get those gigs, and I'm thankful as hell that I did, You can be all dressed up and ready for the dance, doesn't mean somebody's going to ask you. And I was fortunate that I got asked, and, I don't want to lose sight of that either.
Right. Well, Ken, obviously you got to have some kind of musical talent yourself to do a lot of these things. And, from a technical aspect, I know personally of a few musicians that are perfectionists and they want their shows to go off, without a hitch. Can you tell us any situations where you may have witnessed a musician just fucking lose his mind because the techie didn't tune the guitar right, or didn't hit the right pedal, or missed his cue, or something like that?
Oh yeah, the first Alice Cooper tour I did. Remember I told you guys? I think I told you guys that I helped Eric Singer set up his drums for his audition, and then he got the gig. Yeah. He had a drum tech that who's actually a guy I grew up with, and he was a drum tech that didn't really want to be a drum tech. He had other aspirations, and every fucking day on the drum riser was a fight because his drum tech wouldn't have done this, that, the other thing. And there was one, and Eric's a sweetheart, and when I saw this shenanigan going on with him screaming every day, I thought, God, what a fucking asshole! I'd never work for him. And 3 days into my work with him with Kiss, I called his old drum tech and I said, you know what? Fuck you. You were the idiot. You were the one because you did a shit job. I mean, I was that dumbfounded. There was one time, the kick pedal's got the beater that actually makes contact with the kick drum head. Well, I guess it had come loose in sound check, and he told his drum tech. Eric said, it needs to be tightened. So come showtime, intro tapes playing, and Eric, leans over to his tech and says, "Hey, did you tighten that?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure I did." He didn't. First song, beater comes loose, flies over the kick drum. Eric is so mad that while he's playing the drums, he's down on the other side by his right foot, removing the kick pedal itself so he could throw it at his drum tech because he was so pissed off. And every day was a carnival like that up there. Something wouldn't be right, and it got to be like a dad whipping on his kid. It was just amazing to see. And it was, like I say, it was a daily event, but God love him. We got through that tour, and, Eric got another tech after that.
Sure. Ken, let me ask you, while we're talking about Kiss real quick, and specifically Eric, it's more of a public perception that, I'm curious if it's real or false or completely false, but I'm sure you're well aware that the average person looks at Kulik and Eric or Vinnie Vincent or Tommy Thayer, whatever, and thinks that Kiss is Gina Paul, and those guys are like contractors, more or less. They're just like hired guns, more or less like the crew would be hired guns on some level. Is it really? Yeah, sure. Is it really like that within Kiss, or are they treated as equals by the other two, or are they basically ordered around, or what is the real dynamic?
My experience. Well, firstly, they are paid employees. They're not members. Kiss is a business. It's you don't take somebody in as a partner. Sure. When you can hire somebody. But as far as the way they're treated, they travel together. They treated the same, private plane, all of that stuff. They are treated as equals, same hotel, same everything. In fact, there were times on the first tour I did with Eric on Revenge. Eric, if it was a short jump or it was this or that, Eric liked to hang out with the crew sometimes. He would want to just jump on the crew bus. We were going to be to the next town in 4 hours, drop him off at his hotel because, he had done that on Alice Cooper and probably a bunch of other tours. Well, the band are also concerned about perception. You know, we don't want the perception that he's treated that way. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't let him ride the bus with the crew. He's like, no, we're a band. We travel together. We are four guys. We are KISS. We travel together. We work together. We eat together. And they're very aware of the perception. So, yeah, I mean, on the one side of the coin, the way they're treated, yeah, it's, you know, one for all for one. But on the other side of the coin, they are employees at the end of the day. So, I think that answers it, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, the employee thing, though, is really just about the money. And when it comes, so is what you're saying, though, is when it comes down to actually the performance, I guess, are they treated like, well, they know their parts, or they're working out something, you know, because KISS is a theatrical show as well, where there's a lot of choreography and be in a certain place at a certain time and whatnot. Do Tommy or Eric or whatever get any kind of input, not necessarily say, but input to say, you know, it would look better if you did this, or, you know, or not at all?
I can tell you, Eric has tried things on his own, you know, drum-wise or changing a part or, you know, twirling his sticks. He used to have this Army helmet with mirror tiles glued to it for War Machine on their Revenge tour, stuff like that. They kind of, you know, if it makes you happy, that's fine. As far as any choreography with Tommy, I really can't speak to that because I was not in a position to be there. Okay. But I know their opinions are respected. I've seen them work out parts. You know, Eric has approached them with songs he's wanted the band to play, and given time, they've played them. So, you know, they're respected as musicians, they're respected as human beings, and they are certainly treated well. They, you know, they can bring stuff to the table. I mean, Paul and Gene are the ultimate authority, obviously, but you know, my experience, they've always been listened to and, you know, respected. So, I think it was Eric that actually pushed to do Beth. I think that the rest of the guys were, you know, not really so much, and he was persistent. And there are other songs that he's done, and initially it was, you know, not so much, but I guess he instilled the confidence in them that he can do it, and, you know, he delivers the goods every time. So, you know, they're definitely respected in that regard.
Well, Ken, I can speak from personal experience and speaking with a guy who was not an original member of a band, but was with them for close to 30 years, and that would be a guy by the name of Bill Champlin. He was in the band Chicago from 1982 up until 2010, and he did a solo record and was going to do some touring behind it, but he still had to get the permission from what he referred to me on the phone as the principals, you know, of the Chicago entity. And he made it very clear that even after 30 years being in the band as a very integral member, he still could not make decisions as to releasing solo music, touring, you know, doing things on his own outside of the scope of the band Chicago without getting the blessing of the four original members that are still, you know, in the band.
Sure.
So well, can you give us another example of something like that you've witnessed of long-term members of certain bands that, even though that they've been there for 30 years, they're still like a hired gun?
I mean, not only the most obvious ones, which are, you know, anybody in Alice Cooper's band, because, you know, I've been, primary part of my career was working with side guys. I know Eric did his ESP project while he was working for KISS, and I'm sure permissions had to be gotten for that. I don't know that for a fact because I wasn't in the room, but I assume, especially since it had covers, you know, KISS covers on some of the records. You know, the FTP guys were a band. You know, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow was all hired guns. So I haven't really been in that position to speak to that, unfortunately. You know, yeah, I guess the closest would be KISS, and like I said, you know, we know how they're treated. So I mean, I can't speak to that beyond that.
Sure. Well, what do you want to tell the fans tonight? You got any stories of your own? Something that comes to mind that maybe you want to tell us about, regardless if it's Kiss or Alice Cooper or anybody, even Deborah Gibson. Did you ever see her naked?
That'd be a big no. Deb was awesome. I had the good luck to. That was my first real gig. That was my opportunity. That was my my chance, my foot in the door. I started working for the Gibsons when Deb was only doing shows on the weekends because she had a top 10 hit and was still in high school, and the family wanted her to and she wanted to finish high school. So we would play weekends. The grandmother would cut our checks. The mom was the manager, and that was that. So Deb kind of became like everybody's little sister, and she was a sweetheart of a human being. And I worked for them for many years, and I went from, the office was in the basement of the house with grandma writing the checks, to multi-platinum, multi-million-dollar people with a huge house, a huge mansion, and at no time ever did they treat me any differently. I was always welcomed. I was always taken care of. So it was a great experience, because to see the genesis from working class, barely paying the bills, or wherever, to multi-platinum, multi-millionaires, and to have no change, I was real fortunate, and they're wonderful people. I still hear from them here and there, not quite so much these days, but I've got different stories I was going to talk about. We had my first tour with Alice. We had Great White out with us. That was 89 into 90 up in Canada. And, there were some shows where the roads were so impassable with snow. I mean, it was like blizzards every day, and we were loading into hockey arenas. There were days where we just didn't even get there till 2 o'clock, and that's when the riggers would start. And, I wanted to kind of get into that a little bit, because that was an all hands on deck, and everybody pulled in. The Great White guys were there, their crew guys, setting up the guitar techs were helping the riggers, and we pulled it off. We got those shows up and on time, and they were amazing shows. That whole run, it was just one blizzard after another. We had one where the t-shirt truck slid down a mountain, and she climbed out, grabbed as many shirts as she could, and was at the gig selling shirts, waiting on a new truck. It was amazing.
Went down the side of the mountain to get shirts?
She got out of the truck. I guess it slid down not too horribly, and she hauled out as much as she could, her and the other person that was in there, and they sold those shirts. And while we were working at the gig, they had the truck towed and a new rental brought in. But that was just, everybody was in there, everybody helped, and you just did what you had to do. There was another Alice Cooper show I did. We were in Germany, and we did German Bike Week. And the promoter was the German Hells Angels, and those were our stagehands. And what they didn't tell us was, at the end of the show, they were going to have a Viking ceremony. They had this enormous X in the middle of the stage. They dragged out, I don't even know where the fuck the thing was, but it was, all of a sudden it was on stage. They're yelling at us in German. The Hells Angels, who were supposed to be our stagehands, are all fucking drunk at this point. And they had these massive women, and when I say massive, I say like 6'2" and large chested, not Nutrisystem rejects. These were Viking looking women, and they tried to grab our carpenter and drag him out there to tie him to the X, and he wasn't having it. And our monitor guy was trying to get to be the guy dragged out and tied, and it was this weird neo-Gothic music playing, and eventually they found somebody to tie to the fucking X, and they were just doing this gyrating, dancing, and fire sticks, and you're like, what the fuck? I'm supposed to be loading out, So that finally finished, which it was so interesting. You start to not even care that, we're never going to make tomorrow's gig because we're watching these chesty women dance and stuff. So, when it came time for loadout, the Hells Angels decided they were about done with us, and they, started throwing bottles at our road cases. And again, it was all hands on deck, just pushing the shit through and trying not to get our asses kicked by drunken German Hells Angels. That was a fun one.
Wow.
There was another one on that run. Alice has never canceled a gig, to my knowledge. I believe in the past couple of years there was one instance in South America where he was really sick, but for the most part, never. We go rolling up to this, our next gig. It's on the side of the road. It's an abandoned, and I am not kidding, an abandoned circus tent with the big poles holding it up and all, and the ruts on the floor. And we get there, and we're told that we can't play because it's been condemned. And the seasoned veterans among the Alice Cooper crew were like, all right, well, we'll just wait because we're doing it. And those that this was their first Alice Cooper tour, well, we're planning this wonderful picnicky day off we were going to have. We're like, no, we're doing it. They're like, it's condemned. There's no way. Like, no, we're fucking doing it. And lo and behold, by about noon, somebody on a bicycle comes riding in from Gutenberg or wherever the fuck he was, and the council voted and bought a one-day insurance policy. In we went. It's one of those fucking things. And you know what? The show rocked. It was. I actually, when I started my film company, I was debating calling it Condemned Circus Tent Films because it's just such a fucking awesome name. The Condemned Circus Tent. You know, I wish we had Twitter and all that crap back then because I'd have been tweeting my ass off about loading into the Condemned Circus Tent, but God bless.
Well, what did they use for power? Was it connected to a grid or was it all generator?
It was a generator out in a field with some cows. It was really crazy. You know, guitar amps are buzzing. There's no ground. I mean, you know, it becomes so not a good idea. You just get to this state of grace where you're just like, fuck it, we'll get through it somehow. And you do. You know, you really do.
And how was the crowd?
Yeah. Crowd rocked and the show rocked. You know, the worse the building, the harder the situation, the better. The show's just like, was it you guys I was talking to about that Cleveland show?
Yeah, about the lightning and everything. Yeah, I was there.
So those are your best. Those are your best shows. You know, the ones where you're up against it and you're like, fuck, we're never going to get this done. And those shows rock. I mean, that Cleveland show rocked. You're watching lightning hit close enough where you can see it, and you go for it. You know, our last show on the Brutal Planet tour, we played Bulgaria, and this was in 2000. And a lot of bands had booked and canceled. Iron Maiden, a bunch of other ones, and Alice was one of the first to actually book the thing and show up. And it was in this massive old Army stadium. I mean, the thing probably could have held 50,000 people in the stands. I don't know what we sold, but it was insanity because Alice actually showed up and, you know, we came to play. But this thing was out in the middle of, it was an hour ride to a place where we could get a shower. So we get there, and we get there like 2 days before, and we had to there were 3 monitor boards in Bulgaria at the time, and we had to get all 3 and stack them up and wire them together just to get enough channels to almost maybe do a show. And we had a massive generator with no ground. The ground was a screw that was about 2 inches long pushed in the ground, and our guys were just losing it with that. And we had a couple of porta toilets, and there was no food. There was flies. And we're working. It was like 100 degrees out, and you know, we're working, and you know, it's the day before, so you leave, you get back to the hotel, you go back the next day, and we were doing the gig, and shit's buzzing, power's bad, lights are screwed up, and we got to a point where, of course, it starts to rain, and you know, and the monitor guy is killing himself trying to get everything sounding decent, but he's got 3 half-ass boards wired together. So it got to a point where the kids were pushing to come in so much, security called and said, either we let the kids in or we quit. So it was, okay, we're going with what we have. And the rain starts coming down, monitors are cutting out, you can see lightning, and Alice did not cut a song, and the show rocked. There was probably about 10 or 15,000 kids out there that lost their fucking minds. And it was one of those moments, you know, and no songs were cut. We were soaking wet. It got to a point you're getting rained on. You just, okay, if my shit blows up, you know, we have one less guitar player tonight because there's just nothing I can do at this point, you know.
Nice.
And it was a great show. And one of the funnier parts about that was at the end of it, just to get a shower, we had to get driven. They always have runners at the gigs, somebody to run errands for you. Well, they're going to take us 2 by 2 to a place where we can shower because there's no running water, and we drank all the bottled water. There was nothing literally there. So we drive through the woods, through the fucking Hansel and Gretel woods for an hour to get dropped off at this. It was their version of a YMCA, except it was about a 20 by 20 building with a bunch of people like playing basketball. We get dumped off while the runner goes back to get the next 2. So we're on a 2-hour wait on a runner we don't know. We're stuck in the middle of Hansel and Gretelville. And me and the drum tech, J-Man, just looked at each other and go, if he doesn't come back, we're so fucked. I don't have my wallet. I got nothing. I'll be like the hobo of Germany. Or Bulgaria, I'm sorry. It's like, fuck. And so we sit there, you shower, and you're like, all right, well, another hour and a half. And finally the runner comes, and it's like the second coming. You're like, Jesus Christ, thank God I'm going back to civilization and getting out of here. Because, these people that are playing basketball are looking at us like, who the fuck are you? So, yeah, that was a fun one.
Well, Ken, obviously...
I've got a...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to... We were doing this gig. The gig was attached to the hotel. It was a one-off. And me, the monitor guy, and the drum tech decide afterwards, after rehearsal, we're going to go out and, get a few drinks at Hooters across the street. So we go to Hooters, and we're hanging out and, getting something, whatever. And we meet these 3 really attractive steel workers. They were high steel welding women, and they were hot. So we're hanging out, chatting them up and all that. And we decide we're going to go to this other place they know. So, okay. Next thing you know, they're gone, and well, I guess they blew us off. When we go to leave, they've got like an '86 Camaro out there. They're going to drive all 6 of us over to this other bar. Which, of course, we all pile in. We're hammered. Everything's a good idea when you got a few in you,
Right.
So we go over to the other bar, and we're there for a while, and we convince them to come back to the hotel with us, just to hang out. That's what we're telling them. And well, the hotel had a pool right in the lobby. It was in the Midwest. I don't even remember where it was. And I don't know if you guys ever saw the original Planet of the Apes movie where Charlton Heston and the other astronauts see the lake after they land on the planet and start running towards it, ripping their clothes off because they're going to go swimming. Well, that's what the 3 of us did, assuming these 3 women were going to follow suit. So we start running towards there. We are full buck-ass naked hitting the water. Well, what happens when a naked man hits cold water? He's not at his best. And oddly enough, when security came, the girls just had no interest in skinny dipping with us. So
that sounds like you were at the Star Plaza in Maryville, Indiana.
You know what? It could have been. Do they have the gig attached?
Yes.
Then that's probably where we were.
As soon as you walk in the lobby, the pool is off to the left.
Yep, that was us.
Yeah,
security is trying to get us out, and he'd get one of us out, and then somebody else would jump back in, and it was. And I woke up the next day with the worst hangover I've ever had, and I was still in all my wet clothes. Just God. And of course, you swear never again. And 2 nights later, doing it again.
As soon as you described the place, I knew where you're talking about. The venue is part of the hotel, and as soon as you,
which is awesome, and it's like on the interstate, right? It was a pretty big road.
It's right off of Interstate 65.
Yeah, well, I guess if there's a Hooters across the street,
there's a Hooters across the street, as well as a Outback Steakhouse, and all that. So yeah, awesome. You were definitely in Maryville, Indiana.
Well, I'm glad someone knows where I was. I sure as hell didn't.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, Ken, your stories are very entertaining, and you got the book out, We Are the Road Crew, and there's more stories in there. And I like the fact that you'll come back on the show and have like a standing gig here every 6 weeks and bring us some more stories.
Absolutely love it, guys. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's awesome talking to you. I definitely am liking this a lot.
Well, when have you checked out the show at all since we had John? Yeah,
actually, I listened to a couple. I'm digging it. I'm definitely into it, man. It's It's cool, and nobody's doing anything like that right now. So you guys have got a good spot.
Well, we appreciate that. All right, Ken. Well,
why are you laughing? That was a compliment. You're not supposed to be laughing.
Ken, we're so used to getting shit on, we don't take any compliments seriously.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't give many, so no, I'm serious. Who shits on you? They don't like what you do?
Oh, no. Well, we just get it from, anytime you talk realistically about anything, whether it's music or sports or politics or sex or anything, anytime you're way too serious or
too honest, way too honest.
Yeah. When you're way too honest, people get their feathers ruffled. Yeah, I'm sure you're aware.
Well, it's funny is when I used to get pissed off at when people leave a shit review for the book. I don't care if you don't like the book, but don't personally attack me.
Sure.
There's one guy on Amazon. It's worth your time to go take a look because he titled his review "Simpleton Falls into a Career," and then he goes on to just slag me off personally.
Yeah, really.
I'm like, really, fucker? Simpleton. Huh? I think I can do a little bit better than that.
Right.
First of all, look, Ken, as a fellow author and somebody that's written 2 books myself, I could tell you can't be stupid to write a book. I guess you could if you're writing it with a crayon, but to write a real book and try to maintain continuity while at the same time writing stuff on real world stuff, it is very difficult. It is very. Oh. I don't know how you did it. For me, I had 19 chapters that I wrote individually, and then I had to try and find the continuity behind them to put it in order so it didn't read like it was all jumpy and stupid and rights and everything else. So yeah. Yeah, whatever. So, guy from Amazon giving you bad review, fuck him. He's guy from Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I wrote mine, I took all my tour itineraries, I put them on the kitchen counter, and I just reread my life, and I was like, I did that? It was like, yeah. And I think that's where my continuity came in. But I think the funniest thing is when you read the reviews, one person will give me shit because, this book sucks because he didn't give any detail, or, any dirt. Yeah. And then people will give you positive. Oh, this book is good because he didn't give any dirt. So you're like, really? And there's no middle ground. It's, getting praise and kicked in the ass for the same exact thing. So really, you can't win. You may as well just, write what's in your heart and just, if somebody doesn't like it, fuck them.
That's it. That's how I went with mine.
Exactly, Ken.
Yeah,
all right, well, Ken,
guys.
Ken, tell people where they can get the book.
Oh, it's available at Amazon, Kindle, and iTunes, and Audible.com. It's available everywhere. It's a good read. I can't even do that with a straight face. It's a good book. It's available everywhere. Help keep an old roadie out of the old folks' home. It'd be awesome.
Right. All right, that's our good friend Ken Barr. We Are the Road Crew is the name of the book. Go find it, pick it up, read it today. So, Ken, we always let our guest pick a closing song, take us out of the interview. What would you like to hear?
Oh, shit. You know what? Can I have Alice Cooper, Halo of Flies?
Sure. We can do that.
I love that song. Absolutely love that song. Well, thanks, guys. Just let me know when you want me again. Send the old Ken Barr signal up in the air, and Ken Barr will come running.
Excellent. Nice. All right. Well, here's Alice Cooper with what, Ken?
Halo of Flies.
Exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.